In 1870, a 31-year-old man in Cleveland, Ohio, controlled just 4% of America's oil refining capacity. 10 years later, he controlled 90%. By 1904, he controlled 91% of oil production, 85% of final sales, and had created the template for every monopoly that exists today. His name was John D. Rockefeller. But this isn't just a story about oil, it's a story about a system. The corporate structures he invented, the monopolistic tactics he perfected, they didn't die when Standard Oil was broken up in 1911. They evolved, they spread, and in 2025, they control your life, the gasoline you pump, the drugs you buy, the tech platforms you use, the food you eat, the banks you borrow from. Every single one operates using the Rockefeller playbook: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, regulatory capture, tax-exempt foundations that shape policy, market dominance so complete that competition becomes impossible. Rockefeller didn't just build an oil empire, he built the architecture of modern corporate control. And here's the part most people miss: the system isn't Standard Oil. The system is the method, and that method has been replicated by every dominant corporation for 150 years. Amazon uses it, Google uses it, Pfizer uses it, JP Morgan uses it. They all learned from the same blueprint, the Rockefeller blueprint: control the supply chain vertically, eliminate competitors horizontally, capture the regulators, use philanthropy to buy legitimacy. And when the government finally breaks you up, make sure the pieces you control are worth more than the whole. Let me show you exactly how Rockefeller built this system, how he used it to become the richest man in history, how Standard Oil's breakup actually made him richer, and why 114 years later, you still live in the world Rockefeller designed. Because understanding the system isn't academic, it's survival. The system is designed to extract wealth from you and concentrate it at the top. And once you see how it works, you'll see it everywhere. John Davidson Rockefeller was born July 8th, 1839 in Richford, New York. His father was a con man who sold fake cancer cures. His mother was a devout Baptist. That combination, the con man's ruthlessness and the Baptist's moral certainty, would define Rockefeller's entire approach to business. He destroyed competitors without mercy, yet he genuinely believed God had chosen him to organize industry for the betterment of mankind. This wasn't hypocrisy, it was conviction. He believed his monopoly was moral because it brought order to chaos and efficiency to waste. Then in 1859, oil was discovered in Titusville, Pennsylvania. The oil rush began. Thousands of prospectors flooded into western Pennsylvania to drill. Fortunes were made overnight and lost overnight. But while others chased oil, Rockefeller studied the system around it, and that is where the real story begins. It was chaos, boom and bust, overproduction collapsed prices, then shortages spiked them, fortunes were made in weeks and destroyed just as fast. Rockefeller was only 20 years old, working as a bookkeeper in Cleveland, but while others saw chaos, he saw opportunity, not in drilling. Drilling was volatile, risky, dependent on luck. Rockefeller didn't want luck, he wanted control. The real opportunity wasn't pulling oil out of the ground, it was refining it, turning crude oil into kerosene for lamps. That was the real business, that was the leverage point. In 1863, Rockefeller invested $4,000 in his first oil refinery in Cleveland. Within 2 years, it became the largest refinery in Cleveland. But there was a problem. Cleveland had 30 refineries, competition was brutal, margins were thin, most refineries operated on the edge of bankruptcy. And this is where Rockefeller's genius emerged. He didn't try to compete on price, he tried to eliminate competition entirely, and he did it using a method that would later become the foundation of corporate America. Vertical integration. Vertical integration means controlling every stage of production. Most refineries controlled just one step. They bought crude from drillers, refined it, sold kerosene to distributors. That was it. Rockefeller wanted everything. He bought barrel-making factories so he didn't have to buy barrels. He bought tank cars and secured railroad access to ship his own oil. He bought warehouses for storage. He bought distribution networks to sell directly to consumers. Every step that used to generate profit for someone else, he brought in-house, and that changed everything. While competitors paid 25 cents per barrel, Rockefeller made his own for 15. While competitors paid railroads to ship oil, Rockefeller negotiated secret rebates. The railroads paid him to ship his oil and charged his competitors more. This wasn't just efficiency, this was strategic domination. Rockefeller could sell kerosene at prices that put competitors out of business, while still making a profit. And that's exactly what he did. By 1870, he created the Standard Oil Company of Ohio. His refinery capacity had grown from one small plant to the largest refining operation in the world, but he still controlled only 4% of American refining. And for Rockefeller, that wasn't enough. So he launched phase 2, horizontal integration. If vertical integration is controlling the supply chain, horizontal integration is eliminating everyone at your level. In 1872, Rockefeller initiated what historians call the Cleveland Massacre. Over 3 months, he approached every refinery owner in Cleveland. He offered to buy them. If they agreed, he paid fair market value. Sometimes he even hired them as managers. If they refused, he launched a price war. He dropped the price of kerosene below cost. His competitors couldn't survive that. They lost money on every sale. They had 2 choices: sell to Rockefeller or go bankrupt. Most sold, a few fought, they all lost. By the end of 1872, Rockefeller controlled 25 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. In just 3 months, he went from 4% to 25% of American refining capacity, and this was only the beginning. This was the blueprint: offer to buy. If they refuse, destroy them economically, then buy the ruins. Simple, brutal, effective. And this method would be copied in every industry, by every monopoly, for the next 150 years. But Rockefeller wasn't satisfied with Cleveland. He wanted the entire country. Through the 1870s, Standard Oil expanded across America: New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Everywhere he went, he used the same tactics: secret railroad rebates that made his shipping costs lower than competitors, vertical integration that made his production costs the lowest, and ruthless price wars that destroyed anyone who refused to sell. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of America's refining capacity. 90%, that's not a successful business. That's a monopoly. But here's where Rockefeller's real genius emerged. He understood something most monopolists didn't. Monopolies have 2 problems. First, they're illegal. In 1890, the Sherman Antitrust Act was passed specifically to break up monopolies like Standard Oil. Second, they're hated. The public despised Rockefeller. He was called a robber baron, a ruthless tyrant, the most hated man in America. So Rockefeller needed a solution, not just to dominate the market, but to survive politically. And he found it: the trust. In 1882, Rockefeller's lawyers created the Standard Oil Trust. Here's how it worked. Standard Oil of Ohio couldn't legally own companies in other states, but a trust could. So Rockefeller created a trust that held the stock of all Standard Oil companies. 41 shareholders, all Rockefeller and his close associates. The trust controlled the companies, and Rockefeller controlled the trust. This was the first major corporate trust in American history, and it became the model for everything that followed. The sugar trust, the tobacco trust, the steel trust, they all copied Rockefeller's structure. The trust allowed him to control a nationwide monopoly while technically complying with state laws. But more importantly, it created something new, a new kind of power structure. The trust didn't produce anything. It didn't refine oil. It didn't ship kerosene. It simply owned other companies. It was a holding company, and that structure would evolve into the modern corporation, the parent company, with subsidiaries underneath: Berkshire Hathaway, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon. They are all descendants of Rockefeller's trust. By 1904, Standard Oil controlled 91% of oil refining in America and 85% of final sales. Rockefeller was the richest man in the world. His net worth was $900 million. That's around $25 billion in today's money. But that was just the beginning. At his peak in 1913, Rockefeller's wealth would equal nearly $400 billion in today's dollars, richer than Jeff Bezos, richer than Elon Musk, richer than Bill Gates. Combined, the richest individual in modern history. And he built that wealth using the system: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, legal structures that concentrated control. This was the method, but the public was turning against monopolies. In 1890, Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, making monopolies illegal. In 1906, investigative journalist Ida Tarbell published The History of the Standard Oil Company. She exposed everything: secret railroad rebates, predatory pricing, crushing competitors. The outcry was massive. Public anger reached a boiling point. And in 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. It ordered the company broken up into 34 separate companies. It looked like the end. But in reality, it was the beginning of something even bigger. This should have been the end, the destruction of the system, but it wasn't. It was the beginning, the evolution of the system. Because when Standard Oil was broken up, Rockefeller still owned shares in all 34 companies. Standard Oil of New Jersey became Exxon. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. Standard Oil of Indiana became Amoco. Standard Oil of Ohio became Ohio, later bought by BP. The breakup didn't destroy Rockefeller's wealth, it multiplied it. Before the breakup, Standard Oil stock was worth about $600 per share. After the breakup, the combined value of all 34 companies, over $2,000 per share. Rockefeller's wealth tripled. Why? Because competition drives efficiency. Breaking one monopoly into 34 regional giants didn't destroy it, it reorganized it. And over the next century, many of those 34 companies merged back together. Exxon and Mobil merged in 1999. Chevron acquired Standard Oil of Kentucky and Gulf Oil. BP bought Amoco in Ohio. The Standard Oil monopoly of 1911 had quietly reconsolidated into ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. The system had broken itself up to avoid regulation and then quietly put itself back together. But even this isn't Rockefeller's most enduring legacy. The real legacy is the system itself, the methods, the structures, the playbook. And here's how it's being used today. Amazon uses vertical integration exactly like Rockefeller. Started as an online bookstore. Now it controls the entire supply chain, warehouses, logistics networks, delivery trucks, payment processing, cloud infrastructure hosting competitors' websites. Amazon Web Services alone generates $90 billion annually, more than Amazon's retail profits. Rockefeller controlled refineries, railroads, and distribution. Amazon controls retail, logistics, and cloud computing. Same playbook, different century. Amazon also uses horizontal consolidation. It buys competitors, Whole Foods, Zappos, Twitch, Ring, MGM Studios. Over 100 acquisitions. When it can't buy a competitor, it copies their products and undercuts prices using data from its own marketplace. Third-party sellers report sales, Amazon analyzes it, identifies winners, creates Amazon Basics versions, pushes them above the original. Modern Rockefeller price wars, legal, barely regulated, brutally effective. Alphabet is a holding company. It owns Google, YouTube, Waymo, DeepMind, Verily, and dozens of subsidiaries. The Standard Oil Trust all over again. One parent company controlling multiple operating companies, shielding the parent from liability, optimizing taxes, making regulatory breakups complicated. Rockefeller didn't just compete, he shaped the rules, set railroad regulations, controlled kerosene standards, crushed competitors. Today, pharma does the same. Companies fund the FDA, lobby for patent extensions, write the regulations they're regulated by. Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, control the regulators, and then you control the market. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all holding companies. When Dodd-Frank tried to regulate banks after 2008, the question became, which entity do you regulate? The parent, the subsidiaries. Rockefeller solved this in 1882. Banks copied it 100 years later. In 1913, Rockefeller created the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial gift of $250 million, over $7 billion today. On the surface, charity, medical research, education, public health. But deeper, avoided estate taxes, controlled which universities received funding, controlled what was researched, controlled knowledge, bought legitimacy. The man who had destroyed thousands of competitors became a philanthropist. The most hated man in America became a beloved benefactor. The Rockefeller Foundation didn't just give money, it shaped the world. It funded the creation of modern medical education. Johns Hopkins University, University of Chicago, Rockefeller University. It established the model for medical schools, emphasizing pharmaceutical interventions over holistic care. This isn't conspiracy theory, this is documented history. The foundation shaped American medicine to favor pharma companies, many of which descended from Standard Oil's chemical divisions, and they profited enormously. Today, every billionaire uses Rockefeller's playbook. Bill Gates founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, $75 billion in assets. It funds global health initiatives, shapes WHO policy, influences national governments. Mark Zuckerberg created the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Warren Buffett pledged most of his wealth to the Gates Foundation. These aren't just charity, They are tax avoidance, legacy building, and policy influence. Rockefeller invented the model. Modern billionaires perfected it. The Rockefeller family still exists, still influential. David Rockefeller, John D's grandson, died in 2017 at 101. Chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, founder of the Trilateral Commission, one of the most powerful men in global finance for 50 years. The family's wealth, estimated at $11 billion, is spread across hundreds of trusts and foundations. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Rockefeller Family Fund, the David Rockefeller Fund, they still shape policy, fund research, influence politics, 150 years after John D. started Standard Oil. And here's the most important truth. The system isn't meant to be escaped. It's designed to be invisible until you're already trapped. You pump gasoline refined by ExxonMobil or Chevron, descendants of Standard Oil. You buy from Amazon using Rockefeller's vertical integration and horizontal consolidation. You search on Google, structured as a trust just like Standard Oil. You take pharmaceuticals developed through medical systems, shaped by Rockefeller Foundation grants. You bank with institutions using Rockefeller's holding company structures. And your taxes fund regulations written by the industries being regulated, just as Rockefeller designed. The system self-perpetuates, it concentrates wealth, eliminates competition, captures regulators, uses philanthropy to buy legitimacy while avoiding taxes. This is the Rockefeller system. It's not conspiracy, it's corporate structure, legal, accepted, replicated by every dominant company in every major industry. You cannot escape it. You cannot buy oil outside the descendants of Standard Oil. You cannot opt out of Amazon's logistics network. Here's why Rockefeller outlasted every other robber baron. Carnegie built steel mills. When he died, U.S. Steel remained, but his personal control ended. Vanderbilt built railroads. When he died, the railroads continued, but fragmented. J.P. Morgan built financial empires. When he died, his partners carried on, but his personal dominance faded. Rockefeller? He built a system, and systems don't die with their creators. They evolve, they adapt, they spread. Standard Oil was broken up in 1911, but its blueprint lives on. Vertical integration leads to every industry trusts, leads to become modern holding companies. Regulatory capture leads to become lobbying. Philanthropy leads to become foundations. And that is why you are still living inside the world Rockefeller designed. You cannot avoid pharmaceutical medicine shaped by Rockefeller grants. You cannot escape the banking system built on Rockefeller's holding company model. You live inside the system, and the system extracts wealth from you every single day and concentrates it at the top, exactly as Rockefeller designed it in 1870. Every piece of Rockefeller's system was copied, refined, embedded into corporate law, tax codes, and regulatory frameworks. Rockefeller died in 1937, but his system didn't die. It became stronger after his death because it wasn't dependent on him. It was structural. You need gasoline, you think you have a choice? Exxon, Chevron, BP Shell, all of them price-coordinated oligopolies, descendants of Standard Oil, or using the same methods. You're not choosing, you're selecting branches of the same tree. You need to buy products, Amazon, Walmart, Target. Amazon dominates through vertical integration. Walmart and Target must match its scale or die. Same system, different companies. You need internet search. Google controls 92% of the market, higher than Standard Oil's peak of 91%. But regulators don't call it a monopoly because it's free. You pay with your data instead of money. Rockefeller would have loved this. A monopoly so complete, users don't even realize they're paying. You need social media. Facebook, 3 billion users. Instagram, also Facebook. WhatsApp, also Facebook. You're not choosing platforms, you're choosing which meta property to use. Horizontal consolidation, exactly like Rockefeller. You need healthcare, your doctor was trained in a system shaped by Rockefeller Foundation grants. You receive pharmaceuticals developed by companies using patents, regulations, and structures pioneered by Standard Oil's chemical divisions. You pay insurance companies built on Rockefeller's corporate structures. Every step, extraction, every choice, and illusion. The average American spends like $4,000 per year on gasoline, $3,000 per year on Amazon, $5,000 per year on healthcare beyond insurance, $4,200 per year on internet and tech services. That's $13,200 per year, flowing directly to companies using Rockefeller's system. Over a lifetime, $660,000. Not to startups, not to small businesses, to monopolistic corporations using 150-year-old tactics to crush competition and extract maximum profit. And you cannot escape it. You could refuse gasoline, but you need transportation to work. You could refuse Amazon, but convenience and pricing make it nearly impossible. You could refuse Google, but what alternative has 92% market share? You could refuse Facebook. But social connection is controlled by Meta. You could refuse pharmaceutical medicine, but licensing, insurance coverage, and cultural norms are all shaped by the Rockefeller system. Not that he became the richest man in history, but that he built a system you cannot escape, a system where every path leads back to consolidated corporate control. Competition is crushed before it threatens dominant players. Regulators protect incumbents, not consumers. Philanthropy buys influence that perpetuates the system. This is the Rockefeller system, and you live in it, whether you know it or not. Vertical integration reduces costs. Horizontal consolidation eliminates wasteful competition. Regulatory capture provides stability. It works perfectly. And it's why Rockefeller's system still dominates every major industry 150 years later. Foundations fund genuine research. The system works. It delivers products cheaper, faster, more reliably than chaotic markets ever could. Standard Oil made kerosene affordable for average Americans. Before Standard Oil, 58 cents per gallon. After Standard Oil, 8 cents per gallon, an 86% price reduction. Not exploitation, efficiency. Amazon delivers products in 2 days. Google answers every question in seconds. ExxonMobil produces gasoline at scale. Pfizer develops life-saving drugs. The system delivers value. The problem? It concentrates wealth at the top while delivering efficiency at the bottom. You get cheap gasoline, fast shipping, instant information, effective medicine. Rockefeller's heirs get trillions. Both truths exist. How do you respond? 3 options: accept it, understand consolidation and monopoly are features of advanced capitalism, not bugs. Use the efficiencies, buy from Amazon, use Google. Accept that wealth will concentrate, resist it, support antitrust enforcement, buy from small businesses even when it costs more. Use alternatives even when inferior. Vote for politicians promising to break up monopolies. Make the system less efficient in exchange for less consolidation. Understand it and position yourself. If you cannot escape the system, benefit from it. Buy stock in the companies that dominate. Exxon, Chevron, Amazon, Google, Pfizer, JP Morgan. If the system extracts wealth and concentrates it, own the extractors instead of being extracted from. This is what Rockefeller did. He owned Standard Oil while everyone else bought its products. He extracted wealth from the system he built. You can do the same proportionally. Rockefeller's legacy, John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at age 97. He lived long enough to see Standard Oil broken up, reconsolidated, and its methods spread across every industry. He saw his foundation reshape American medicine and education. He saw his grandchildren positioned at the top of finance and industry. He built a system that outlived him by a century and will outlive us all. The system: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, corporate trusts, regulatory capture, philanthropic influence. It started with Standard Oil, spread to steel, railroads, sugar, tobacco, then in automobiles, electronics, pharmaceuticals, technology. Now it dominates every sector of the economy, and you cannot escape it. You can only understand it. Rockefeller's worldview. Competition is a sin. Most hear this as greed. Rockefeller meant competition is wasteful. It duplicates effort. It destroys capital. Consolidation is righteous. It creates efficiency. It serves consumers through lower prices. Monopoly isn't theft. It's the natural end state of efficient markets. The modern Rockefeller system: Amazon eliminates retail competition. Google eliminates search competition. Meta eliminates social media competition. Exxon, Chevron, BP control oil, Pfizer. Merck, J&J control pharmaceuticals. JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citi control banking. The consolidation Rockefeller started, it's reached its logical conclusion. The end state isn't thousands of competitors, it's 3 to 5 dominant players in every industry, all using Rockefeller's playbook. And consolidation continues. Every year, fewer companies control more market share. Every year, barriers to entry get higher. Every year, the system gets harder to escape. This is the Rockefeller system, not Standard Oil, the method. And the method is eternal because it works. Your takeaway: if this video showed you a system you never saw before, if you understand that the corporate structures controlling your life, were built by one man 150 years ago. Subscribe to this channel because understanding the system is the first step. You cannot escape the Rockefeller system, but you can see it, and seeing it, changes everything. John D. Rockefeller created a system you cannot escape: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, corporate trusts, regulatory capture, philanthropic influence. That system is the modern economy, and you live in it every single day. Welcome to Rockefeller's world.